A recent report in Germany says that Europe will lose more than $24 billion per year. That doesn't include the United Kingdom, to Chinese electric cars that are either made in Europe or imported from China and sold in Europe. At the same time, BYD have announced that they will build their own electric car factory in Europe, where they will assemble Chinese-made products and sell them to Europeans. Very smart strategy. CATL will build a battery factory wholly owned by China. They're going to build that in Europe. That is just a part of their plan to dominate. This is like a Trojan horse. They're going to build their own companies wholly owned by the Chinese government or by Chinese citizens, Chinese companies in Europe. Along with that, Europe is forecast to import nearly 1 million electric cars from China in 2025. And there is already 10 electric car manufacturers from China selling EVs in Europe. A German report has just come out, and it has the German public, the media, and politicians all going, oh no, we're in a bit of trouble here. A bit more than a bit of trouble, in fact. A lot of trouble. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Big thank you to our Patreon supporters. Really couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, I'll put a link in the description, or you can just Google the Electric Viking Patreon. Europe is finally waking up to the threat from China. Yeah, I know, some of the car CEOs, Carlos Tavares, the CEO of Stellantis, he says Europe is basically screwed when it comes to China taking over the automotive market in Europe, that it's just going to happen. Well, it seems as though the Germans are waking up to this reality. Europe's automotive-dependent economies face an enormous hit from Chinese car imports, according to a study by a unit of German insurer Allianz. Last year, China overtook Germany as the world's largest exporter of cars. That's something that not many people actually even noticed happened. Chinese-built electric vehicles pose the greatest risk to Europe's automakers and could cost them $8 billion every single year in lost profits by 2030 unless policymakers take action. I think this $8 billion figure is complete nonsense. I don't think it takes into the equation the fact that one automotive industry job actually employs an additional 10 people indirectly. That's a statistic that I often bring up on the channel. It's something people don't realize. The automotive industry employs literally millions of people worldwide, and it employs millions of people in Europe. Put it this way, the automotive industry employs nearly 1 million people in the United Kingdom alone, and the United Kingdom is not really known for its automotive industry. Policymakers need to meet the challenge with reciprocal tariffs on imported cars from China, do more to develop EV battery materials and technologies, and will also allow Chinese car makers to build cars in Europe, according to the report released on Tuesday by the unit of German insurer Allianz. The truth is here that unless they put massive tariffs on Chinese cars, which Mercedes-Benz believes is not possible or practicable for a variety of reasons, the European automotive industry it's screwed. There's no other way to put this. They're just screwed. Why? Well, we know that it costs around $12,000 less per car on average to build a car in China. $12,000 less per car. But that is kind of conservative Western estimates. I think the figure is probably even greater than that on, the mid-priced premium type electric cars. For example, a Tesla type vehicle. Peugeot CEO Linda Jackson said on Tuesday that Chinese EV makers are a growing threat because they are offering better cars than in the past at affordable prices. And it's true. In fact, the cars aren't just better, they're better than most of the competition that are being made in Europe. Not all of them, but better than many of them. Linda, Peugeot CEO, said this: "For me, the biggest danger is the Chinese coming in because they are coming with quite competitive prices and with very good vehicles." She said this to the Financial Times Future of the Car conference. So what we need to do is to make sure that we have the technology and not necessarily trying to get the cheapest car, but get the best value for money. She also said that Tesla was a big problem for European automakers, and I think she's right. She said recent price cuts by Tesla are adding to the pressure faced by the automotive industry and lowering the residual value of cars. Basically, what this means is If German, European automakers try to sell EVs similar in size and range to a Tesla EV for the same price as Tesla, they will lose money on every single car they sell. Every single one. Jackson's comments and the Allianz trade study echoes a warning by Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares at this year's CES in January that the European automotive industry faces a terrible fight. Those are his words. Terrible fight over the threat of Chinese importers flooding the European market with cars that are in many cases better at cheaper prices. He said it's inevitable. It's happening, and there's probably not a lot that the European automotive industry can do about it unless they start putting big tariffs on Chinese cars. The European Union doesn't want to do that. Why? Because they sell a lot of things to China too. Mercedes-Benz said that's why recently. Europe's car makers are facing a dual threat from the prospect of falling sales of their own vehicles in China, and they're losing market share in China, which is a massive problem, possibly even bigger than the market share they'll lose in Europe. Why? Because here's an example. The Volkswagen car company, 40% of their car sales worldwide are in China. 50% of their profits. Well, that was, 2021. This year, not the case at all. So why is this happening in China? Well, there's a lot of local electric vehicle companies, a lot of electric car companies in China, a lot of car companies, period, in China that are making better products than legacy automakers and selling them at lower prices. And consumers they're basically voting against what they used to do, which was to buy foreign products. A crowded market for all electric SUVs and crossovers and sedans in China is putting massive pressure on local automakers, many of whom have had hundreds and hundreds of dealerships go bankrupt in the last 12 months, to export more vehicles to Europe, where they can sell them at higher prices with higher margins and actually start making a profit rather than the massive losses they're making in China. Chinese imports could cost the European Union 24 billion euros in economic output in 2030. 24 billion euros in 2030, or a significant percentage of the bloc's gross domestic product, Allianz Trade said. And I think the situation is probably far worse than that. I'm not convinced they're actually taking into equation all the factors here. But the automotive-dependent economies of Germany, Slovakia, and Czech Republic will face an even bigger hit, said the report. The Chinese challenge to the European automotive industry is massive, and it's not going away. The stakes are high for Europe's automotive industry. 4 out of 5 cars sold in Europe are assembled locally, many of whom use Chinese parts and Chinese batteries, the report said. Europe is also the world's export powerhouse in the sector, with car trade generating between 70 to 110 billion euros in trade surplus for the European economy every year over the past decade. 70 to 110 billion euros in trade surplus every year for the past decade. Now, I don't think Europe's going to lose all of that. But if they even lose 50% of that, that's 35 to 55 billion US dollars every single year. That is massive. The report said the US Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, had made Europe a target for China. That's true. I've said that on this channel many times. While Europe remains comparatively open to imported EVs, Tesla, for instance, accounts for 20%, in fact more than 20% this year, of fully electric car sales in Europe. The US is set to be a much tougher market to crack for Chinese vehicles because of the IRA, and of course because of the tariffs that the Trump administration put on Chinese vehicles, making it very hard for companies in China to sell their cars in the United States. Now, you've probably heard that now Tesla is selling their cars made in China in North America, but they're not doing it in the United States. They're selling them in Canada, where those big tariffs don't apply. Now, what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think on this? What do you think is going to happen to the automotive industry? How much effect will this have on European GDP? Personally, I think it's going to probably put Europe into a recession, if not a depression. Most likely a depression. It's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be brutal. And I'm a little bit scared for these European countries. I really feel sorry for them. I think a lot of people, millions will lose their jobs. Millions of dollars, billions of dollars will be lost annually. And this is the future of the automotive industry. If you're in it right now and you're in Europe, well, I mean, your job is definitely at risk. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.